Nora looked at the photo of my date for exactly 2 seconds, said, "Cancel it," and set her wine glass down in the sink. Full, unbroken, abandoned. My roommate, the woman who famously did not get jealous, had gone the color of the tile. You have to understand what a violation of physics this was. Nora Quinn did not react to things. In 2 years of sharing a 2-bedroom walk-up, I had watched her negotiate our rent down mid-lease, talk a mugger out of mugging us, and eat a parking ticket like it was a fortune cookie. When I'd moved in, she'd laid out the roommate rules on day 1, and Rule 4, delivered deadpan over pad thai, was. And don't worry about bringing dates home. I don't get jealous. I get informed. It became our running joke. Every time I matched with someone, she'd hold out her hand for my phone, study the profile like a customs officer, and issue a verdict. Denied, she says vibes is a personality. Approved, but she's a Sagittarius, so keep your receipts. So on Friday, when I handed her my phone with Vanessa Cole's profile open. Vanessa, 31. Art consultant. Dimple. A golden retriever that in hindsight I never once heard bark on a call. I was expecting a verdict. What I got was 2 seconds of silence, all the blood leaving her face, and cancel it. Cancel it? I laughed. That's the whole ruling? No commentary? She's a Libra, you didn't even, Eli. She'd never said my name like that. Flat. Careful. The way you say a name when you're standing on ice and you've just heard it settle. Cancel the date. Why? She looked at the photo again, and I watched her do something I'd never seen her do in 2 years. Choose a lie. I watched the machinery of it, the pause, the recalibration, the smile arriving half a second late. Because I've got a bad feeling, she said. Woman's intuition. Nora Quinn believed in woman's intuition the way she believed in horoscopes, which is to say she used them as punchlines. That's when I should have stayed home. Instead, I did the thing men do in these stories, the thing you're already yelling at me about. I decided my unflappable roommate had finally, humanly, gotten a little jealous, and some small, stupid, flattered part of me liked it. So I put on the good shirt. She was standing in the kitchen doorway when I left, arms crossed, and she said the last thing she'd say to me for 6 hours, and I'd replay it all night without understanding it. Fine. Go. But Eli, whatever happens, whatever she suggests, you do not bring her back here. Not for coffee, not for the bathroom, not to see your photos. Not here. Here's the part where I tell you the date was a disaster, except it wasn't. It was flawless. That was the problem. It took me 2 more days to learn that flawless is a manufacturing standard, not a personality. Vanessa Cole was better in person than in pictures, which never happens, and she laughed at my jokes a quarter second before they landed, which should have registered as impossible rather than as chemistry. She'd picked the restaurant. Quiet, corner table, my seat facing the wall, hers facing the door, and I clocked that and filed it under confident instead of under trained. She knew I was a wedding photographer before I told her. It's on your profile, she said, and it isn't. And she asked questions the way water finds cracks. Not what do you do? She asked where I kept my archive. Whether I shot film. Whether I stored negatives at a studio, or, and she smiled here, dimple deployed, at that cute apartment, you strike me as a shoebox under the bed guy. She asked how long I'd had my roommate. What my roommate did for work. Whether my roommate traveled. She asked it all so lightly, beat by beat, each question arriving on the back of a laugh, and I answered like an idiot. Because charm is just an interrogation you're enjoying. 40 minutes in, my phone started going off. Nora, who texted me maybe twice a month, usually the word milk, sent 9 messages in 1 hour. Where are you? Which restaurant? Is she asking about the apartment? Do not leave your phone on the table. Do not leave your keys on the table. Eli, answer me. I read them under the table and felt the evening tilt, that specific nausea of realizing two people at the same dinner are having different meals. When Vanessa slid out to take a call, angled away, hand-cupped, 40 seconds, no goodbye audible, I texted back, "What is going on with you?" Nora's reply came in 4 seconds, like she'd had it typed and waiting. Her name is not Vanessa Cole. Come home. Take a route you've never taken. I'll explain everything. And then I need you to forgive me. In that order. I got home at 11 to a changed apartment. The chain was on. We never used the chain. A kitchen chair sat under the front door handle, waiting for me to move it, and Nora was on the living room floor with her back against the couch, surrounded by paper. Real paper, folders, printouts. A battered accordion file I'd never seen in 2 years of sharing 400 square feet with this woman. On the coffee table, face up, was a photograph she'd printed of my date. Except in this photo, Vanessa wore a blazer and a lanyard, and she was standing in an office lobby under a logo that said Larkspur Analytics. Her name is Dana Reyes, Nora said, without hello. Director of Special Projects at Larkspur. And before you ask what a special project is, tonight, Eli, you were the special project. I sat down slowly on the arm of the couch. Nora, start at the beginning. The beginning. She laughed with no air in it. Okay, 6 years ago I co-founded a company. Me and a man named Marcus Hale. Larkspur Analytics, we build risk models for insurers. My models, his money, his golf friends. 4 years in, we're worth real money, and Marcus starts moving things, consulting fees to companies that are just mailboxes. A strategic reserve that only he can see. I found it because finding things like that is literally what our software does. I ran the company through our own product, and our own product flagged my own partner. She pulled a page from the accordion file and set it on the table. A signature page. My roommate's name on it in ink. So he moved first. Board meeting I wasn't told about. A consent document with my signature. This signature, surrendering my voting shares. I never signed it. It's traced, Eli. It's a good trace, but it's a trace because he took it off page 9 of our office lease. Same pen pressure, same little gap in the N. I know, because I have the originals. The real lease, the real consent drafts, the transfer ledgers his mailbox companies used. I took them the night I realized what was happening, before security walked me out of my own building with a box. Then you have him, I said. That's proof. Why hasn't? Because proof is a fight, not a fact, she said. Because 11 months ago, when I told the board what I had, Marcus didn't call me. He sued me. Defamation, $2 million, his lawyers against my savings account. She looked at me, and there it was again, the settling ice voice. You want to know who Marcus Hale is? He's a man who doesn't sue people to win. He sues them to bleed. He can bury me in filings until my lawyer quits. He can subpoena my clients until no one hires me, and if the documents ever surface, he has an expert lined up to swear I forged them myself. The thief crying theft. That's what he can do to me, Eli, concretely, with the law's own hands. Take my career, take my savings, and take the one box of paper that proves I'm not the liar he's paying a courtroom to say I am. The radiator ticked. Somewhere below us, the city went on being normal. And Donna Reyes? I asked. Donna finds things, Nora said. 11 months they've been trying to figure out where my originals are. They've subpoenaed my storage unit, empty, my mother's attic, insulation, my old lawyer's office. And 9 days ago, a process server handed me a deposition notice through this door. This door, Eli, They finally confirmed my address, and 8 days ago, a woman with a rescue dog photo and a dimple liked your profile. She slid my own phone back across the table. She'd pulled up the match history. Look at the timestamp. Look at the date the account was created. The profile was 8 days old. She had liked me 40 minutes after Nora signed for the deposition notice. You didn't match with her, Nora said quietly. You were assigned. I want to be honest about the next part, because the next part is the part I'm not proud of, and this story doesn't work if I only tell you the flattering scenes. I didn't sleep, and at 2 a.m., staring at the ceiling, my phone lit up. Unknown number, Mr. Marcus Hale. I apologize for the hour and the theater. You seem like a decent man sharing a lease with a complicated woman, so I'll be direct. Before you pick a side, ask Nora what she took from the company's safe the night she was terminated. Ask her why she really left Larkspur. Then ask yourself why she's never once mentioned any of this in 2 years of splitting your rent. Decent men check both stories. M. H. And here is my confession. For about an hour, it worked. That's the thing nobody tells you about men like Marcus. The gaslight isn't a lie you believe. It's a doubt you rent. And an hour is cheap for him. I lay there doing the math he wanted me to do. She had hidden it for 2 years. She had lied to my face about woman's intuition. I had known this woman through 2 Novembers and a flooded bathroom, and I did not know she'd co-founded a company. At 3 a.m., I got up for water and found Nora at the kitchen table in the dark, not pretending to be doing anything else, just sitting with her phone in front of her, face slit blue. He texted you, she said. It wasn't a question. The ask her what she took from the safe one, or the she's done this to other roommates one. He rotates. The safe. There is no safe. She turned the phone toward me. On it was a text thread going back months, the same unknown number cadence aimed at her. Sign the settlement, and this ends. Your new address is nice. The landlord seems reasonable. Depositions are so public, Nora. How's the photographer? He seems nice. Decent men check both stories. Dozens of them every few days, a man reaching through the screen into our kitchen, our lease, our locks. And the last one, from tonight. 11:58 p.m., while I'd been lying in the dark renting his doubt. Tell your roommate he had one job. Bring her home. We'll do this the other way now. I was going to show you all of it tomorrow, Nora said. I know what he texted you did what it was built to do. It's okay. It works on everyone once. She looked up at me. And for the first time in 2 years, Nora Quinn's voice cracked in front of a witness. But Eli, the other way means they're done being charming. And I need you to hear the sentence I've been rehearsing since Friday. I am so sorry. Because you didn't get dragged into my mess by accident. I dragged you in on purpose, months ago, and you don't even know how. She never got to finish the sentence. Because that was the moment the front door learned how to whisper. A scrape. Metal in metal, patient, quiet, the sound a lock makes when someone is asking it a question, politely. Nora's hand closed on my wrist. We sat frozen in the dark kitchen watching the deadbolt's thumb turn tremble, a half-degree back. And I did the only smart thing I did all week. I raised my phone and started filming, and turned on every light in the apartment with the switch beside me. Footsteps went down the stairwell fast, 3 at a time. From the window we saw a car ease off the curb with its headlights off, and it didn't turn them on for 2 blocks. We didn't sleep. We moved the bookcase in front of the door like students, and Nora made coffee at 4 a.m., because at that point it wasn't a beverage. It was a policy decision. And at 7:02, Both our phones buzzed at once with the reason the polite era had ended. A business alert. A headline that meant nothing to me and everything to her. Meridian Group to acquire Larkspur Analytics in $140 M deal. Signing set for Thursday. That's the clock, Nora said, staring at it. That's been the clock all along, and I didn't see it. She put the phone down flat, like it was hot. Eli, listen to how the timing works, because everything they do until Thursday makes sense once you see it. Meridian's due diligence closes when the deal signs. Thursday, 10 a.m. My originals prove the founder committed fraud inside the company Meridian is buying. Before 10 a.m. Thursday, those pages are a bomb. Meridian walks, the deal dies, and Marcus goes from a $140 million exit to a criminal referral. After 10 a.m., they're barely paper. It becomes Meridian's problem, buried in indemnity clauses. And Marcus is gone with the money. And the Friday after signing, at 9 sharp, he deposes me in his defamation suit and starts strip mining what's left of my life, with a $2 million judgment and no company left to check him. So for the next 5 days, I'm the only bomb he hasn't found, she said. Thursday, 10 a.m. That's not a deadline for him, Eli. It's a deadline for me. Either those documents are in front of someone at Meridian before that signature, or I spend the next decade paying for the privilege of having been robbed. I'm a photographer. I don't have a set of skills that impresses anyone at parties. But I'll tell you what a decade of shooting weddings actually trains. You notice everything. You document everything. And you never, ever trust that a moment will happen twice. So while Nora called her exhausted lawyer, I went through the apartment the way I go through a venue before a ceremony, methodically, corner by corner. Because the whisper at the lock had a question in it, and I wanted to know if anyone had asked it before. They had. My bedroom closet, the archive boxes where I keep client negatives and backup drives, sat squared and neat, one rotation off. I keep the labels facing out at the seam, a stupid private habit, and 3 boxes faced a quarter turn wrong. The tape I keep on my filing cabinet had been peeled and relaid a millimeter south, the dust shadow giving it away like a chalk outline. Someone had been in my apartment, not last night, before last night, while we were both out, and they had searched my room, not Nora's room. Mine. I stood in my own closet with my skin crawling and my brain finally, belatedly doing its job. Vanessa asking where I kept my archive, whether I shot film, a shoebox under the bed guy. Nora, in the doorway Friday night, not to see your photos. Not here. Nora, at 3 a.m., the sentence the lock had interrupted. I dragged you in on purpose, and you don't even know how. I walked back into the kitchen holding one of my own archive boxes and set it on the table between us. Nora, I said, what's in my negatives? She didn't answer the question. Not yet. And I've forgiven her for that. Because what she said instead was, if I tell you now, you'll look. And if you look, your face will know. And on Wednesday, your face is going on a date with a professional who reads faces for a living. Which was the first I heard of the plan forming behind her eyes. Because here was our problem, laid out on the kitchen table next to the cold coffee. We knew everything, and could prove almost none of it in the time we had. The forged signature needed her originals, plus authentication, plus someone at Meridian willing to look. And Meridian wasn't taking calls from the disgruntled co-founder currently being sued for defamation, which is exactly how Marcus had pre-poisoned that well. The lawsuit was never about winning. It was about making her unlistenable. The break-ins were deniable. The texts came from burners. Donna Reyes had a name that wasn't hers, and a dog that didn't exist. But Donna had also made one mistake, and I was it. Because Donna believed I was still on the hook. She'd texted me twice since Friday. Had so much fun. When am I seeing the famous portfolio? And Nora watched me read the second one, and I watched an idea arrive in her the way weather arrives. She hated it. I could see her hate it. She proposed it anyway, in the flat voice of a woman spending the last currency she had. Text her back. Tell her Wednesday. Tell her you'll cook. She swallowed. Give her what she's been angling for since the second course, Eli. Invite her here. You told me never. That was when this apartment was a hiding place, Nora said. It stopped being a hiding place the moment that Locke moved. So now it's going to be a stage. She pulled a notepad over and started writing in her ruthless little grid. Who stands where? What gets found? What gets said? And as she wrote, she told me the shape of it. Wednesday night, while I cooked dinner for a woman whose job was me, we would let Larkspur's finest search team find exactly what they'd been hunting for 11 months. A version of it. Anyway, my version. Shot on my copy stand, printed on my paper, aged with my hands, with 3 deliberate errors seeded in the pages, the kind only the original forger would catch, because the only man alive who knew precisely what those documents should look like was the man who'd built his fortune on them. You want to counterfeit your own evidence, I said slowly, to bait the man who counterfeited you. I want Marcus Hale to look at fake pages and correct them, Nora said. Out loud. On camera. In your living room. She looked up from the grid, and 2 years of deadpan cracked into something bright and furious and fully awake. You keep saying you're just a wedding photographer. Eli, I need a man who can light a room so naturally nobody realizes they're on camera, who documents everything, and who never trusts a moment to happen twice. She spun the notepad toward me. Congratulations. This is the worst wedding you'll ever shoot. Monday and Tuesday, we built the trap. And Monday night, in the middle of building it, she finally answered the question from the kitchen. I was at my copy stand, reshooting document pages under the good lights, when Nora came in carrying one of my archive binders, The Alvarez Wedding, June, 2 years back. The first job I booked after she moved in. She set it down, opened it to the middle, and slid a negative sleeve out of its page. Behind the strips of some stranger's first dance, interleaved so precisely you'd need to be looking for them, were folded pages of onion skin, thin paper. She eased one out with 2 fingers and laid it on my light table, and the light came up through an office lease from 6 years ago, and a signature, her real one. The true N with no gap in it, glowing like an X-ray of the whole war. 10 months ago, she said, they subpoenaed my storage unit, and I realized there was no place with my name on it that would ever be safe. So I asked myself where the safest place in the world was, and the answer was, inside the boxes of a man with no connection to Larkspur, mixed into 10,000 frames of other people's weddings, in an archive so obsessively organized that he'd notice if anyone ever touched it, but so big he'd never stumble on them himself. She looked at me over the light table. 18 binders. 41 pages. Your negatives have been holding my whole life for 10 months, Eli. I hid my originals in the one place Marcus could never think to look. And then, Marcus, being Marcus, bought the woman who could make you show her exactly where to look. I stood there doing inventory on 2 years, the way she'd insisted on the closet with a deadbolt for your expensive gear. The way she watered my plants, but never ever touched my boxes. The way she screened every single person I brought near this apartment, holding out her hand for my phone. Customs officer, verdict, next the vetting, I said slowly. 2 years of judging my dates. That was never a joke. That was perimeter security. It started as perimeter security, Nora said. The light table hummed. Neither of us looked away, and the air in that little room changed pressure. Friday, she said, when you handed me your phone and I saw Dana's face, you thought you were watching me get jealous. And I let you think that, because the truth was worse, and I couldn't say it yet. But here's what I owe you, since we're doing confessions over evidence. She took a breath like a diver. Somewhere in the last 2 years, Eli, the perimeter stopped being about the pages. I'd read some profile of a perfectly nice woman and hand your phone back and say denied, and my reasons got thinner. And I told myself it was operational discipline, because I am extremely good at lying in a professional capacity. Her chin came up. She said the next part the way you'd read a verdict on yourself. Friday night you walked out that door in the good shirt to have dinner with a weapon aimed at both of us, and for the first hour, before the fear, I have to be honest about the order of operations. Before the fear, what I felt was plain, stupid, human jealousy. So, the Rule 4 thing. I lied. I do get jealous. Apparently, I just never had a reason. There is a version of that night where I said something equal to the moment. What I actually said was, you denied the pediatric nurse, and Nora said, she laughed wrong, and we both started laughing. Over a light table holding the evidence of a $140 million fraud, at 1 in the morning, 3 days before the deadline, and I understood that whatever this was, I was in it to the end. Wednesday first, she said finally, stepping back, restoring order to the air. If we survive Wednesday, we can discuss Rule 4 like adults. Is that a date? It's a deposition, she said, from the doorway. You'll be under oath. Bring receipts. Tuesday, we brought in the grown-ups, because Nora had learned this the hard way and made me learn it too. Evidence you spring on the world is a stunt. Evidence you hand up a chain is a case. Her lawyer, Priya, a sole practitioner running on spite and instant noodles after 11 months of Marcus's motion blizzard, listened to the plan and said absolutely not, and then listened to the Meridian deadline again and said, okay, here's how we do it without me losing my license. By that evening, she'd gotten one phone call through, the only one that mattered, not to Meridian's deal team, who'd have looped in Larkspur immediately, but to the outside counsel running Meridian's due diligence. A woman named Okafor, who had, per Priya, the pattern recognition of a hawk and no chill whatsoever. Okafor heard the words traced signature, original documents, one-party consent state, Wednesday night, and did not laugh. She said Meridian's signature could develop a scheduling issue until Thursday 9:59 if what came out of Wednesday was real. And she brought the last piece we couldn't, a financial crimes detective named Alvarez, who reviewed the texts, the lock video, and my closet photos, and started a file with a case number, which is the least romantic sentence in this story, and the one that made Nora cry in the hallway of a Kinko's. Wednesday, 7 p.m., the stage was lit. And I mean that professionally. I'd spent the afternoon rearranging our living room the way I light a reception. 2 camera bodies gaffer taped into the bookshelves, shooting through gaps in the spines, a third in the kitchen, audio in the smoke detector, every lamp placed so that no face in that room could ever fall into shadow. Detective Alvarez and one very tense associate of Okafor's sat in Nora's bedroom with a monitor. Nora was in Chicago for a deposition. Loudly, in a Monday phone call we'd fed through the apartment while assuming the walls had ears. The bait box, my forgeries of her forgeries, 41 pages, 3 seeded errors, sat in my bedroom closet inside the Alvarez wedding binder, because Nora insisted the hiding place in the story we told be true. Liars get caught on the details they invent, she said. So we invent almost nothing. At 7:58, Donna Reyes, Vanessa, Dimple, a bottle of nice wine, knocked on the door I'd been ordered never to let her through, and I cooked dinner for the enemy while my roommate listened from a parked car, And I'm telling you now, gluing a smile on for 2 hours over handmade pasta was the hardest shoot of my career. She was good. She was so good. She waited until the second glass to drift toward my shelves. Is this the famous archive? God, you weren't kidding about the boxes. And touch by touch, question by question, she worked the room like a metal detector. At 9:12, she excused herself to the bathroom, and my phone, face down by the stove, pulsed once. The closet camera on the monitor in Nora's room. They watched Donna Reyes lift the Alvarez binder with gloved fingers she had not been wearing at dinner. Find the onion skin pages in under 90 seconds. She'd been told exactly what to look for, which told us everything about who'd once seen the real ones, and photograph all 41 pages in a silence so professional it was almost beautiful. Then she came back to the table, sat down, touched my hand, and said, "I'm having such a good time," and I looked at this extraordinary liar and delivered the line Nora had written for me, the hinge the whole night turned on. "No, you're not," I said pleasantly. Dana. To her lasting professional credit, Dana Reyes did not spill her wine. Her face did something small and fast. The mask didn't fall. It changed masks, and she leaned back and looked at me with what I'd swear was relief, the relief of a performer allowed off stage. "When?" she asked. "Friday," I said. "Somewhere around the time you knew my job before I told you." "But officially?" "About an hour ago, when you found in 90 seconds what took me 2 years of living here to know existed." I refilled her glass. Steady hands, Eli. Here's what happens now. You just photographed 41 pages. Send them up the chain tonight, and one of two things is true. Either your boss looks at your photos and wires your bonus, or your boss looks at your photos, and because he is the one human being alive who knows every comma of the originals, he finds something wrong with them. And then, Dana, at midnight before his $140 million signature, Marcus Hale is going to ask himself a very uncomfortable question about whether his director of special projects just brought him a fake, and whose side she's really on. I let that sit. 10 years of wedding toasts teaches you exactly how long to let a silence pour. So here's my offer, and it expires when you stand up. I'm a freelancer with a dying industry and a roommate who hid a bomb in my closet without asking. I don't want a side. I want $250,000, and I want it before 10 a.m. And for that he gets the originals, every page, plus my silence about the woman who's been living on top of them. But he comes himself. Not you. No lawyers, no couriers. The man whose signature it ruins, in this room, tonight. Verifying every page with his own eyes before he pays. Because I only get to sell this once, and I'm not handing it to an employee. I smiled the smile from her own playbook. Tell him the photographer says it's the last honest deal of his career. She studied me for a long moment, and whatever she was looking for, my face held. Because the greed story is the one story people like Marcus Hale never question. Betrayal for money was his native language. I was finally speaking it. He'll want to come at 11, Dana said, standing, gathering her coat, entirely Vanessa-free now, brisk as a dispatcher. At the door she paused and gave me one strange, unreadable look. I've developed the photo of it in my head 100 times since, and said, "For what it's worth, the dog's real. He's my sister's." And she was gone. At 11:04 p.m., 11 hours before the Meridian signing, Marcus Hale walked into my living room, and every lamp in it loved him. He was smaller than his texts. That's the first thing. Silver watch, quarter zip, the affable crinkle of a man who does charity 5Ks, And then he started talking, and you saw it. The thing Nora had lived with for 6 years. A man for whom every room was a due diligence exercise, and every person in it an asset column. He didn't sit. He put on reading glasses, snapped open a slim briefcase. "The money's real, Mr. Marsh. Let's see the paper." And I laid the 41 pages on my dining table one at a time under the good lights, and Marcus Hale did exactly, precisely, catastrophically what Nora said the forger would do. He proofread. Page 11. A small snort. "Cute. Someone's retyped this. The consent draft was dated the 9th, not the 11th. I should know. I typed it at my kitchen counter." Page 19. Wrong. The Ellery Holdings transfer was $240, not $215. You think I don't know my own plumbing? 25 grand went to keep the accountant's mouth. He caught himself, smiled thinly, kept going. And page 33, the lease signature page, the crown jewel, where Nora had seeded the subtlest error of all. She'd drawn her real signature, the true N, and Marcus Hale held it up to my lamp and said, with the weary pride of a craftsman insulted by an apprentice, the 26 words that ended his life as he knew it, "This one's not even the right forgery." The gap in the N goes here. I traced it off page 9 myself. It took me 4 tries. The room went very quiet. Marcus lowered the page and found me not looking at him, but past him, and some ancient predator wiring finally fired. 11 hours too late. "Smile, Marcus," I said. "You're in focus." Nora's bedroom door opened. She came out first. She'd insisted on that, on being the first thing he saw. And behind her, Detective Alvarez. And behind him, Okafor's associate already on the phone to Okafor. And Marcus Hale looked from face to the bookshelf where, following my eye line at last, he finally spotted the small glass eye between the novels. Watching him the way it had been watching him for 4 hours. He went for the pages, actually lunged, grabbed the stack and made it 2 steps toward my kitchen sink before Alvarez had his arm, and Nora said, in the calm, flat voice of a woman who had waited 11 months and 6 years to say it, "They're photocopies, Marcus, of counterfeits. Of your counterfeit. You just spent 40 minutes authenticating your own crime scene. And then, softer, the knife going all the way in. The originals were never in this apartment tonight. You want to know where they spent the evening? In a conference room at Meridian with a forensic examiner. Your buyers have known since 9 o'clock. They kept the signing on the calendar so you'd feel safe enough to come here." Marcus Hale was read his rights against my bookshelf, under my best lighting, and the last thing he said on camera before the good sense of lawyers descended on him forever was aimed at Nora, in a voice stripped of every affable crinkle. "You were nothing without me. And Nora, 2 years my roommate, 6 years his victim, 4 hours into being neither, replied, 'Underestimated isn't nothing. Ask your lawyers tomorrow.'" Thursday at 9:58 a.m., Meridian released a 1-line statement postponing the Larkspur acquisition pending developments. By Friday, developments had a docket number: wire fraud, forgery, evidence tampering, and, thanks to my little smoke detector, solicitation of burglary, since Marcus had spent a full 3 minutes of his authentication visit complaining that Dana's people had failed to find the pages twice. The defamation suit against Nora didn't survive the following Tuesday. Priya filed the dismissal paperwork and a malicious prosecution countersuit in the same trip to the courthouse, and reported that the clerk high-fived her, which Priya said had never once happened in the history of clerks. Donna Reyes turned state's witness within the week. I think about her sometimes. The strange look at the door. Nora thinks she knew, at the end, exactly what she was carrying upstairs to Marcus, and carried it anyway. "Some people quit out loud," Nora said. "Some people quit by delivering you. The board reinstated Nora pending the fraud trial, then made it permanent, then made it chief executive. And if you want to know what justice looks like, it looks like your roommate leaving for work in a blazer to run the company that once had her walked out with a box, while 18 binders of wedding negatives, empty of secrets now, just first dances again, sit in a closet that no longer needs its deadbolt. Which left Rule 4. It took us 3 weeks to have the conversation, because we are both cowards in exactly one category, and because some conversations need to marinate in near-death experience. It finally happened on a Friday, when I came out of my room in the good shirt, and Nora looked up from the couch and said, "Date?" Light, deadpan, hand already out for my phone, customs officer, old routine, and I looked at her hand, and didn't give her the phone, and said, "Depends." She's this analyst. Extremely intimidating. Terrible taste in business partners. Lies about jealousy. Nora looked at the outstretched phone hand like it had betrayed her, and put it down, and for the second time in 2 years I watched her face abandon a lie halfway through construction, and this time what came out instead was the truth, quiet and certain. The last 4 words of the whole war, denied. Stay home. Mine. We ordered the pad thai. She laid out the new roommate rules over dinner, and Rule 4, delivered deadpan, was, don't worry about bringing dates home. There won't be any. I get jealous. Here's the thing I can't stop turning over. Months later. Marcus Hale had money, lawyers, a fixer with a fake dimple, and 11 months of head start. And he lost to a woman with an accordion file and a wedding photographer with a copy stand. Because power that big has one blind spot, it cannot imagine being watched the way it watches everyone else. But that's not really the part that stays with me. The part that stays with me is 2 years of a running joke. 2 years of I don't get jealous, I get informed, and underneath it, the entire time, a person standing guard over my life so quietly that I mistook her armor for a punchline. So before you go, answer me 2 things. If your roommate, your friend, the person across the hall of your life, looked at one photo and told you, no explanation, cancel it, don't bring them home, would you have trusted them blind? Or would you have put on the good shirt like I did and walked straight into the trap? And the real one, has there ever been someone in your life whose feelings for you were hiding in plain sight, disguised as teasing, as overprotectiveness, as a running joke you both kept up for years, and when did you finally see it? Or are you, right now, thinking of a joke that maybe was never a joke? Tell me about them in the comments. Use their name. Somebody in that comment section is one push away from knocking on the right door. And if you believe the best love stories start as running jokes between 2 people too stubborn to read the punchline, subscribe, so the next one lands right where this one did, closer to home than you expected.